everybody, Nick here, and I got a quick review for you today of your Leatherman Squirt. This is the Leatherman Squirt P4, and this is actually on loan from Jim, and it's on loan because the one I've had for many years is kind of wrecked beyond recognition, although it still works, and I wasn't even sure what model this was, but it's a P4, so I'm really grateful that I was able to get this so I can show off what a good one looks like before I review what was actually one of, and is still one of my favorite tools out there. So, first, a quick size comparison. Here's your Spyderco Delica. Here is a standard US quarter. Here's your Leatherman Wave. So that gives you a good idea of what we're looking at in terms of size. This is not a big tool in any way. But that's okay. It doesn't need to be. And it carries bigger than it is. So let's go into the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we're actually going to switch from the pretty factory one to the one that I've carried and loved. And for a long time, this was my EDC. Whether or not I had anything else on me, this lived on my keychain. And, you know, trying to go a little lighter weight, it finally got booted off the keychain, but I still sometimes regret it because this is a great little tool. Just to give you an idea of what's on here, you've got yourself this little tool, which is a precision screwdriver, but it's also a scraper. This is probably the most useful little tool on this device. And it's just an absolute gem because it gets you into little crevices. It lets you hit little buttons. This little tool gets a lot of love from me, and I wish that Leatherman would include it on more kinds of things. Here you've got kind of an all-poker sort of thing. Not terribly sharp, but, you know, whatever. On one side, you've got a knife that's just chisel ground here, and it's been sharpened to all hell at this point on mine. Already been to that side. You've got yourself a nice little file, nail on one side, metal on the other side, and you've got yourself a flathead with a bottle opener and a Phillips head kind of thing. And yeah, so let's just talk about it a little bit. First, and pliers, of course, with a wire cutter. One interesting thing that a lot of people don't realize, at least on my particular one, and I'm hoping you can see this, these pliers lock up very, very tight at the tip. Which actually means that these make passable tweezers in your hand. If you've got a little splinter or something like that, in my experience, very often you can reach in and grab those. And it's tight enough that you can actually go in and grab an individual hair or something like that. So I've used these for tweezers more often than you'd think would be helpful. And, you know, that's a wonderful thing to be able to have those on you and very quickly get access, which is a good thing. I already talked about how much I love this damn flathead scraper little tool. It's good for eyeglasses. It's good for damn near everything. But this is a really, really super useful tool, and I'm really, really glad to see that it's still on the newer models of the P4 here, which is good. And then finally, I gotta say, this tool is just durable. So the finish that you see here, it used to look like this. But after some number of years, it was just so scratched up and ugly looking that I just took it to a bench grinder with a wire brush wheel and gave it a little bit of an orange peel texture, and now it shows scratches even less. So, but this tool has been with me for so long. I think this is the longest owned tool in my collection, excepting the Swiss Champ, and, you know, certainly the longest carried. And so this has survived a lot with me, and I'm really grateful for it. This is a great, great, great little tool. Absolute gem. So, I mean, that's your good. It's got a bunch of useful little functions. It's lightweight enough that it can live on your keychain for years and years, and you won't really care. It's got some really nice tools, like your scraper and like your little tweezer pliers here, and it's just durable. You can't kill the damn thing. Let's go on into your bad. Unfortunately, it's not all perfect and rainbows and unicorn farts. You've got some minor issues with it. First and foremost, these pliers are very, very small, which means that you're only going to be able to... you can't necessarily grip everything you want to. I mean, anything the diameter of a penny or bigger, even of a dime, you just can't get a good grip on it, even if it's got some kind of a knurling going on there. So you got to keep in mind that you've got pretty severe limitations, and carrying this guy does not necessarily mean that you don't need a bigger set of pliers like your Wave. This is surprisingly useful in a surprising number of situations, but the pliers go out of their element pretty quick. Also, the Phillips head on this guy is pretty crappy to use. Yes, it's true that you can jam this into a lot of Phillips head screws and twist it to unscrew that, and I've used it more often than I'd like to have, but you can see that even though it's a nice tool-hardened kind of steel, it's starting to strip away a little bit on the sides there. And honestly, even when it isn't, it still sucks to use. It's a good little tool, and it's a good thing to have kind of in an emergency close at hand, and it was my first line of defense very often for, if I have a tool, see, durable. If I have something I gotta unscrew, but more often than not, I found myself going for my wave. And then finally, I don't know why I've got that out, the knife is just tiny, and it's a slip joint, so there's nothing stopping this from closing on you. Really at all. I mean, you can put your finger right here, but then your finger's right up on the blade. So you got to be careful about what you use this for, especially given that it's chisel grind and will tend to bite into things in kind of a curvy pattern. It's not God's gift to knives. So if you're carrying this, it doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't be carrying an actual knife. But then again, I tend to advocate that people carry an actual knife. Useful tool. But this is good enough in a pinch. So that's a beautiful thing. However, the existence of this knife also makes this tool no longer TSA acceptable, because you could... Oh, don't even get me started on the TSA. But anyways, they will take this away from you if you've got this on you, because it does technically have a knife of sorts. So that's something to keep in mind. The only other bad thing about this is that it is fairly heavy on the keychain. This is going to be equivalent to something like, I think, 10 US quarters in terms of weight. It's a dense little tool, but it's totally workable. It stayed on my keychain for many, many, many years. So, not a big problem there at all. So, I mean, and honestly, I can't come up with any ugly, aside from the fact that after many years, this is pretty damned ugly compared to your stock version. So, there you go. That's your good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's go into the final conclusion here. So my final conclusion is that the Leatherman Squirt P4 is a really great tool. I mean, it's spent more time on me in my life than anything but my driver's license and my watches. And that's impressive. This got a lot of carry. Like I said, I've gone a little more lightweight and changed things up, but I may still go back to this at some point in time. It's a really, really nice tool. It's durable. It's got a selection of really useful little tools, which is great. And it's just stellar in terms of functionality, because it's so nice to have something small and quick that's on you at any given moment, so you can knock out a lot of small tasks quickly, and for the bigger tasks you can still run and get your Leatherman wave or your charge or whatever it is you're carrying that day in your backpack or something like that. This is just a really stellar tool. One thing that's disappointing to me is that Leatherman is actually no longer selling the Squirt P4. They've replaced it with the PS4, which replaces these two useful tools, the awl and the little flathead driver, which I just love so much, with a really crappy small pair of scissors. And, oh man, that sucks, because little tiny Leatherman scissors, even on the wave or something like that, are just not that useful. And to lose two very useful tools for them, oh, that's a shame. I bet the PS4 is still a gem despite that, and the fact is they kept the scissors and they didn't take off the knife, so it's still not TSA compliant. Ugh. But anyways, I mean, I'm sure the PS4 is still a gem, but if you can find yourself a P4, you're in much better shape, because you've got more useful tools than in the new model. So I hope Leatherman changes their mind and skips the crappy scissors in the future. Leatherman, if you're watching this, come on, man. I'll buy a new P4 if you make it better, if you skip the scissor thing. But anyways, so this is just 100% unqualified little gem. Durable, useful, just great overall. And I think if you're in the market for any kind of a keychain tool, this is probably where you need to go. I'm going to review a couple of offerings from Victorinox and actually one from Gerber coming up here soon. But if I land anywhere but here, I'm going to be shocked as heck. So there you go. Whoops, bias. Anyways, have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day.